Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. You know who it is. And it's time for a review of the new Stella Donnelly album, Beware of the Dogs. This is the debut full-length album of Australian singer-songwriter and secretly Canadian signee Stella Donnelly, whose record here has been turning a lot of heads in the indie scene. Even I was pretty impressed with how fun and catchy lead-up tracks like Tricks were on this record. Now, I admit I wasn't really tuned into what Stella was doing back in 2017 on her thrush metal EP, but her sound still felt eerily familiar once I actually got the opportunity to hear this entire album. On the instrumental side of this LP, you're looking at some pretty standard, soft, sometimes jangly indie rock and pop. The guitars and drums on this thing usually fall somewhere on a spectrum between the slick, easygoing, and sweet sounds of Mac DeMarco, but then also the dreamy, euphoric synth pop vibes of Beach House on Bistro and Watching Telly. Then there are a handful of cuts that are super stripped back to some very lonely guitars and Stella's very nasal and kind of polite vocal delivery, which does lead to a few sleepier moments on the record in my opinion. There are a few spots where I'm just wanting more from the instrumentals on this album. The song Lunch is a prime example where Stella vocally is really selling the track, but the instrumental utterly fails to escalate the emotion of the song to give her singing more impact. And there are a few tracks on here that feel heavily indebted to the jangle pop and twee pop of the 1980s. The songs Die as well as Season's Greetings, tracks that don't exactly provide a new spin on these sounds, but they are a few of the most fun and peppy tracks on the entire record. The performances aren't that bad either. They do a pretty decent job of recapturing a sound and a vibe. There is a bit of standout soloing and melody writing as well, especially on the song Tricks, where some of the guitar playing seems to be purposely ridiculous. Stella's singing on this record does have some high points, but I'm not completely sold on it either. I do like the youthful and kind of girlish tone, but there's not a whole lot of presence to it, at least some of the time, because I do think there are a good deal of performances here where she does come through with a lot of emotional conviction. She digs deep, she gets shouty or even laughs mid-performance. I think the title track on this thing is actually a great example of Stella showing off quite a bit of anger and emotion and volume and pitch control. The tracks on this album I love the most are the ones where Stella comes through with the most commanding vocal performances. Honestly, the songs where she's more subdued and feels more emotionless than emotional just don't do too much for me. But I'm not trying to tear this album down from front to back or anything like that. I know I've been sort of talking about a lot of my gripes with it. I actually like this record overall, even if it does come off a little bland on the surface, because I think Stella's greatest talents on this album really come through on her songwriting, her ability to focus on a topic, and I do think she creates a bit of a lane for herself with the themes on this album. There are quite a few songs here approaching things like sexism and the gender divide, the way these things are sort of reinforced culturally through religion and traditional values. We also have the opening track Old Man, which seems to center around this sexist guy's advances and creepo behavior. There's also the chilling Boys Will Be Boys, which focuses on just excusing rape and rape culture. Also, there are some tracks on this thing that focus on young crushes as well as love on the rocks, with some odd situations and reference points. The song Mosquito has Stella showing off this intense sexual desire for this person she has in mind, from masturbation fantasies to comparing herself to a malaria mosquito just circling around a light that she's obsessed with, and also wanting to bring this person a cake, but they're allergic, and this isn't the only time on the album that allergies sort of turn up in a romance scenario. They also do on the song Allergies. Want to go back once again to the song Tricks, which I absolutely love. The connection Stella has to the person she's focusing on with this track I'm not entirely sure of. She's obviously hanging around this person. It seems like it could be physical, but the standpoint from where she's singing, she clearly sees this person as ridiculous, as she consistently highlights his totally detestable behavior and even points out things about him like his Southern Cross tattoo, which if you know anything about Straya, it's a pretty, tacky tattoo choice. Also, I love the lyrical bit on this track where she should have rhymed with the F word, but then she says, you want to get laid. And it turns into this like stretched out, weird, reverby, psychedelic transition. You know, Stella shows a real knack on this record for being able to approach these really dark and emotional and super significant topics, but then also being able to tie in these songs that bring a lot of levity to this album, show quite a bit of humor, show her being kind of cheeky, which adds to the personality factor of this album a lot. As far as modern indie pop and rock goes, Beware of the Dogs is a solid record. Hopefully in the future from Stella we get bolder instrumental choices and ideas that do a better job to support and reflect the unique stories and lyrical angles that she presents in her songs. At its best, this album is captivating, it is heart-wrenching, it is quirky, it is sweet. At its worst, it's a little generic and kind of underwhelming, or even underwritten, like on the song Bistro, which lyrically just kind of reads like an elongated filler motif right in the middle of the record. The issues that I have with this album I mostly chalk up to debut record blues, to Stella still being in a position where she's kind of finding her sound. Regardless, there's a lot of great raw talent on this thing, and easily some of the best indie rock and pop I've heard in 2019. I'm feeling a decent to strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Stella Donnelly, Beware of the Dogs, forever.